What's going on, everybody? It's Rick Barrett, and I'm back with the Barrett Breakdown, the show where we cut through the noise, drop the talking points, and have real conversations that actually matter. Now, if this is your first time being here, or if you've watched all of our interviews so far, you know that I'm not here to play it safe. I'm here to ask questions that most people avoid and give my guests, more importantly, the space to speak what they feel on these matters and to make sure that their opinion, their point of view is well represented. Whether it's politics, culture, faith, freedom, this show is about honest talk from real people who aren't afraid to challenge these narratives. Now, as today's guest, as always, is somebody you're definitely going to hear from. His name is Dan Carr. He's the host of The Patriot Pastor. He goes by The Patriot Pastor across social media. He joins me to discuss the idea about the GOP struggling in the South, particularly in Georgia and in Alabama. By the end of this conversation, you're going to be thinking differently about that specific area, subject, especially as we go into the 2026 midterms. So grab a coffee, grab a smoke, grab a beverage, grab a snack, sit back and relax, because the Barrett Breakdown is here and we're just getting started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard the intro, and without further ado, we are going to welcome to the Barrett Breakdown, Mr. Dan Carr. Sir, thank you for taking some time to sit down and hang out with me tonight. How are you, sir?
Man, Rick, I'm doing great. And I want to first say thank you to having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to get on and talk about things that matter to all Americans all across this great nation. And so thanks for having me on.
And, you know, all these interviews seem to come at the perfect time, because there seems to be, after a supposed or a feeling of a unified front at the end of 2025 with the election of Trump, and everybody feeling very good. 2024 into 2025, Trump's first year. This unified front that got him elected seems to be cracking at many different places. Most notably, we could talk about her in a bit, the sudden resignation of one Marjorie Taylor Greene that has shocked many people in particular. So I'd just like to give you an opening to tell us your thoughts about what you are observing, Dan, as it relates to the GOP in Georgia and Alabama, and why does that give you concern?
So, Rick, to be honest with you, I've been having these conversations over the last several days with a lot of different people, all over, not just Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, but just all over the nation, and especially, other pastors. And there's and other GOP people that are involved in the GOP, and there's a major concern, a major concern. And I don't think it's going to get better. I think it's actually, and I hate to say this, but I think it's going to get worse. I was actually at lunch today, and we were having this conversation about the midterms coming up in 2026. The Democrat Party right now is sitting back and just laughing at what is happening among the Republican Party, because we are handing them. If listen to me very carefully. Listen, let me just say this from the beginning, that that I am a major supporter of Donald Trump. I have right here, I have my MAGA hat, my Donald Trump autographed MAGA hat, personally from President Donald Trump. I mean, I'm a huge supporter, have been a huge supporter of Donald Trump. But I believe that right now, and if we are afraid to speak out against some things that are happening in the direction that we see some of the leadership going, then we're no better than North Korea. We're no better than China or some of these other countries. We don't have a dictatorship, right? And so we should be able to speak out against what's happening and not be afraid to. And so that's why I appreciate shows like yours, is because people should not be afraid to speak out, worried about what might happen to them. And if the Republican Party continues on the path that it is right now, we are not just going to lose in 2026, Rick. We're going to lose huge in 2026. We are going to, they're going to take the House. They're going to absolutely take the House. and probably even begin impeachment again of Donald
Mm.
Trump. The direction that the GOP is going right now is not good. I hear all the time, people always constantly saying, well, we can't speak out against, a Republican. We have to be careful of speaking out against fellow Republicans. And all I'm seeing out of Washington, D.C. right now is nothing but tearing down America First candidates and tearing down the candidates that built the MAGA movement. There is no one that has been more MAGA than Marjorie Greene Taylor. I mean, there is no one that is more America First than her, and even Thomas Massey and some of the others that are in DC. And now what I'm seeing is we are just obliterating them, and we are welcoming into the White House this Muslim socialist out of New York City. And so the Republican base and the MAGA base, people like me, are like, what is happening? What is going on? Why are we having these type of conversations, and why is this happening right before the midterms, right before 2026? And so my mind really is just blown away at this present moment because of things that are happening all over this nation. And if we continue on this path, Rick, we're going to lose we're going to lose in midterms. I'm not trying to be all doom and doom and gloom here. It's just the facts. We have got to get a hold of this, and we've got to get a hold of this fast.
I agree. You're talking to somebody who voted for Trump 3 times. So I've always been a fan of Trump. I've always been a fan of the mentality he had, and the genuine. When people ask me why I would vote for him, I always said I generally appreciate the fact that he's a billionaire, he's all these other things, but I think he generally actually does care. As little or whatever the case may be. When you talk to Trump, he actually does care, and so it's been shocking. And I think it was, and I'll throw this back to you as I finish this. This summer really did feel like the cracks were beginning to show. They may have been in the background, kind of festering and fostering. And then in the summer, between the Iran war and then some of these other things that kind of popped up, there started to be the fissures when you heard people in his administration calling people who even questioned things panicins and all these other kinds of things. And it's only continued to escalate. And I don't know if you've seen the meme on Facebook and going around social media. There was the election coalition of MAGA, which was, Tucker Carlson and all these other kinds of people. And now it's flipped. It's Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, all these kind of the people that were negative and never Trump and have always kind of been setting back to Trump's America First goals. Now those are the people that he's surrounded himself with. Dan, do you have any idea or any clue, any insight into this? What people like me, just a guy here in Central Texas, I'm watching this in real time and I'm seeing the flip from some of the people that had his back throughout. I mean, if you said it right, there is nobody in this union outside of Trump's family that has been more with President Trump than Marjorie Taylor Greene. Right. There's the funny pictures of her like on the floor of the house, handing the phone. It's like Donald's on the phone, talk to him, and all these other kinds of things. And all of a sudden, and it seems like on a dime, the people that had his back through everything have been tossed out. Do you have any insight into that or any idea why?
So I think it could be several things. Number one, I think it goes to the Epstein list.
Mm-hmm.
And when Donald Trump was running for office, the Epstein list was talked about a lot. I mean, it was really became a vocal point of the whole entire campaign. We have the Epstein list. We're going to release the Epstein list. It's on my desk. I've heard Trump, some of his staff. The list is on my desk. Then it went from that to
Pam Bondi out there running her mouth saying, "I have it on my desk for you guys." Continue, please.
Yep. And then it went from that to, the list doesn't matter. We don't need the list, and then it went to, you're not a Trump supporter if you want to see the list. I want the list released, and the list should have been released a long time ago. I want that Epstein list released. Now, I will say this because I want to clarify this, because when I say that, people want to come at me and say, well, you're attacking Trump because now Trump doesn't want the list released or whatever. Now, I know that they're supposed to going to be releasing the list. They voted on that. I'm talking about before, how this all started. I do not believe that Donald Trump is on that list. I don't believe that. I believe that if Donald Trump was on that list, that Joe Biden would have released that list a long time ago. I don't believe that Donald Trump is on the list. I don't believe that at all. But whenever you start a campaign and you're running a campaign on, we're going to release this list. I've got the list on my desk to now, and Marjorie Green Taylor was running with that, that she was running with, we're going to release the list. Everybody wanted the list released in MAGA. And then all of a sudden now the script flipped that the list doesn't matter. We don't need to see it. And so I think that started some of it. I think that was, and I think that played a major part of it, with the cracks in that base of the Republican Party. And so whenever that started happening, people started leaving the base because people are leaving the base.
Yeah.
Marjorie Green Taylor is much stronger than what I think Donald Trump and a lot of people anticipated. She carries a lot more weight. I don't like the fact that she's resigning in January. I wish she wasn't. I wish that she would stay on,
Yeah.
and finish out that term and even run again. I think she could win personally. I think Rand Paul's going to win and Thomas Massey's going to win. They've already proved that they can
You
beat.
really do think that she would win? Because Trump said that he would throw all of his weight to getting rid of her, and that's, I mean, that
I think she would
I
win.
think for her, I read one where she's actually politically pretty savvy in this regard because she takes this step back, she lets the primary happen, she avoids that nasty primary fight, and then if she wants to get into politics in 2028, she kind of comes in with a clean slate. I mean, so that's just kind of the ideas I've heard people say about that.
So I do believe that she would win.
Okay.
But I got another opinion on why I think she got out.
Okay.
And I think that someone got to her and said, they have dirt or they have something on maybe some family, and that's why I think she's getting out to save her family. That's
Okay.
now I don't know that for sure. I'm just talking and just giving you my opinion on that. But whenever it comes to cracks in the base, I believe 100%, no doubt about it, that the Epstein list is playing a major part. Because all throughout the campaign, if you remember, the Epstein list was talked about all the time. I have been talking about this Epstein list for a year and a half.
Mhm.
Of these pedophiles, not only do their names need to be told all over the nation, but every one of them need to go to jail. They need to go to prison. If you were going to the Epstein Island and committing some of these god awful acts, you need to be stripped of all power that you might have. You need to go spend the rest of your life in jail. 100%. And I don't care who you are. I don't care what your name is. I don't care what your last name is. I don't care how much money you have in the bank, how much money you've given to a political party. I don't care what position you hold. You need to go to prison for the rest of your life. And so I think that is where the crack started. Many people started saying some things, and then the infighting started, and then egos got involved, pride got involved. And now we're where we're at. And the Democrat Party, they are not just going to win in 2026, but if we're not careful and if we continue on this road, they're going to win in 2028 as well. And we're going to end up having, Newsom and AOC as president and vice president if we're not careful, if we don't get our acts together. So the message that I want to make very clear and that I want to send out is the Republican Party, we need to quit our infighting. And I get it, man. Whenever it's primaries, everybody's going against each other. We're trying to get our candidate.
Mhm.
But the type of fighting that's going on right now is not that type of fighting. Matter of fact, the primaries really haven't even started yet. They don't start until January. This is Thanksgiving. We're to be getting ready for Thanksgiving. We're to be getting ready for Christmas. But instead, we're fighting amongst each other, like a bunch of like we're fighting like we shouldn't be right now.
Mhm.
And so it's really damaging the party, and it's damaging getting things ready for the midterm election in 2026.
I agree. I agree completely, and I think the Marjorie Taylor Greene point that you brought up is very true. I think it's got to be something personal to see something so abrupt. She resigns on Friday night at 7 p.m. That's not
I
something
know.
you plan on doing. That's like, okay, something's been slid across the desk, and it's like, yeah,
Absolutely.
you might want to think about that. So that's a great point, Dan. And it is interesting because for once Trump got elected and even the early part of 2025, the Democrats seemed to be in disarray. They had no message. They were kind of throwing things all over the wall. And lately, the beginning of fall, they've kind of eventually rebounded because that's what politicians did, and they do. And the Republicans' big mistake was, we'll be, we've got JD Vance, we got a great pipeline, we got Marco Rubio, we're going to be fine for 2028 and all these other kinds of things. We don't have to worry about it. And we didn't see that. And I'm not blaming Trump, because I am actually a pro-American protectionist. I'm a pro-tariff person. I believe in those types of things. I don't have a problem with them. But we are starting to see a little bit of a struggle in the economy right now, and that's starting to produce some of the infighting I see, because you see younger Gen Z politicians, pundits, things like that, starting to bring up, hey, what about us? We're having an affordability crisis. We can't find jobs. And we're having the older generation kind of say, sit down, you'll be fine, stay in your place. And I that's one of the biggest cracks I see, Dan, is this divide between the younger generation and the older generation. That the younger generation just, I guess, for lack of a better term, wants a seat at the table, and the older generation is telling them, well, we haven't earned it essentially yet. And that's just a bad strategy at this point, because that is the future of the party. And I don't know if you want to speak to do you notice anything in this kind of divide between older politicians, older pundits, the older generation, and younger pundits generation, representatives of Gen Z, the infighting that's happening there?
If you go to any Republican, event across the nation, executive committee and the Republican club boards, go look at every single one of them, and then take a look at their age.
Yeah.
That number is going to be high. I'm on the executive committee board, and I'm on the Republican club board in my county, and I love serving with the men and women that I serve with. But I'm the youngest person,
Hmm.
and I'm 44. I'm the youngest person that is on the executive committee, and I'm the youngest person on the club board. And I believe a lot of that has to do with, you have people that get power and they get control. And I'm not sure it's like the ship is sinking, but nobody wants to fix anything because they don't want to let go of the wheel. And so they're going to just drive this thing right down below the sea. If we would just bring the younger voter in and listen to them and give them a seat at the table, because that's what they want. It's not that the younger voter wants control of everything, because I talked to them. My son is turning 18 years old Wednesday, and I'm going to take him to register to vote. And we got all this whole day planned on Wednesday for things for him to do, that he's turning 18 years old. He doesn't want power and control. We talk about this all the time. He just wants a seat at the table. He just wants to be heard. He just wants people to value his opinion. And that's all they want. I was at USM 2 weeks ago at a Turning Point event in Hattiesburg, where Senator Chris McDaniel was there speaking and answering questions. And we were there for 3 hours. A lot of young people came into that event. A lot of young people came in there, college students, and were asking questions. It went on for 3 hours. The attitude that I got from the students was not that they want control. They don't want control of the party. They don't want to be the president. They don't want. What they want mainly is a seat at the table. And unfortunately, because of a lot of the older generation, and I'm not trying to attack them, I'm just giving you my opinion on this, and what I'm seeing is that a lot of the older people, they feel like if they give them a seat at the table, then they're going to lose the power and control. What's happening is, because we're not willing to give them a seat at the table, we're going to lose control of our nation. And it's going to be people like Mandani taking charge. It's going to be people like AOC taking charge, because the Democrat Party is listening to that younger generation. And let me give you an example. In Mississippi, whenever you looked at the election between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, if you take only 18 to 30-year-old voters, Joe Biden wins in Mississippi. 18 to 30, we are losing that younger generation. And the reason is because a lot of the older Republicans, that old guard, they want to stay in control, and they don't want to give people a seat at the table. Matter of fact, if you challenge them on any of this, they will attack you and they will try to destroy your name 100%. You got people in leadership, they can't be honest. They make deals, they don't stick to them, they don't have integrity. And that's what's happening all over this nation. And that is why we are losing that younger generation. And if we're not careful, we're going to continue to see Muslims take over and Muslims get elected. Listen to now this is mind-boggling to me, and you and your listeners can do some research on this. This is incredible. I believe there was 44 Muslims that just ran for office in this last cycle. 44.
Mm-hmm.
41 election. Mayor
Yeah.
of New York City, Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, and the list goes on and on. And now we're kicking Marjorie Green Taylor to the curb, and we're welcoming Mandini into the Oval Office. And to me, that just absolutely aggravates me and irritates me that we were going to prop up this socialist, this Muslim dictator. That's what he wants. It's unbelievable to me what's happening in our nation, and we're gonna lose in these midterms if we're not careful.
Yeah, and people were shocked that Mandani was even on the ballot or even had a chance. And all you would have to take a look and say to these people is Mandani is just the outcome of 20 years of progressivism on the left. This is just the natural conclusion of what they wanted. Because you may not like, I don't like any of the things that Mandani said in his campaign. Most of it is Mickey Mouse fairy tale thing. I'm gonna make the buses run faster. Great, okay. But that's something that how are you gonna make a bus go fast? You're gonna put a turbo V8 in it? Like, I don't know what you're gonna do there. But we're going to give you guys free childcare so you can start families. We're going to freeze and do rent controls. You and I know those are dumb things to do, but the younger generations, that Gen Z who have no economic opportunity, they feel like they don't have any economic opportunity. They feel like they're being not listened to. They're like, all right, well, that's something, at least for me, that I can latch on to. And, not to say that they're not smart enough, they are, but when they're in the position they are, somebody giving a hand when you're drowning, you're going to grab anybody's hand if they are
That's
offering
right.
it to you while you're drowning. And so you also had a socialist elected on the West Coast. It was either Portland or Seattle. I keep forgetting, but they elected a socialist as well. And that was a socialist versus a Democrat. So that's where we're moving away from, 2028 may be the last election where it's a Republican versus a Democrat. The next cycle may be a Republican versus a straight up socialist, because
I
that is the
agree.
direction the party is moving. And
Absolutely.
finally, and this is where the tragic death of Charlie Kirk really will sting the party for years, because he was the guy. Say whatever you will, I wasn't a huge fan of his style and his things, but nobody could ever argue with how impactful he was, giving that generation that voice and making sure they were heard. And now that they're not, we're going to see, the left ramp up their free programs and these things that on the surface appeal to younger generations, and you don't know they're terrible until you actually get into them. And you're like, oh, this is awful. Well, yeah, that's socialism. It's just, you can't figure it out until you're there. But really the whole point of this is, Charlie Kirk's death it was obviously tragic and terrible, and it was really awful for the party. But I don't think people understand, Dan, how long-term of an impact that's going to have on the Republican Party.
Rick, I think you nailed it. Whenever you look at the cracks, not only the Epstein list, that was huge, but the Charlie Kirk. No one was reaching that younger generation like Charlie Kirk. No one. There was no one who could talk. First of all, he was part of them. He was their age. He was young, but there was no one that can talk to them like he could. There was no one that could debate like him. I mean, just the way that he could have a conversation on any and every subject at the drop of a hat was incredible. And then he had the respect from both sides. He had the respect from both sides of the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
He could keep a lot of that together. And now that he's gone, there is no one that is there. Now, look, I see all kind of people trying to fill that gap, and you have all these people trying to get up and tell everybody that they're the next Charlie Kirk, and they're not. If they're telling you that they're the next Charlie Kirk, they're not the next Charlie Kirk. Period. There'll never be another Charlie Kirk. But that is a major point that we are missing within our party is someone like Charlie Kirk, and he was here and he was keeping people together and keeping people united. And now that he's gone, now we're seeing all of this infighting that is just coming. And I think this, Rick. Here's what I think. I think it's going to get worse. I
Mm.
don't think it's going to get better. It's not going to get better. And so it's Marjorie Green Taylor now. It's Thomas Massey now. It's Rand Paul. And here's what's amazing. Rand Paul and Thomas Massey are now being called rhinos.
Yeah.
And you have Lindsey Graham being called, a Make America Great candidate.
Yeah.
What is happening in DC? What is happening? I mean, Thomas Massey is a furthest thing from a rhino.
Yeah.
Rand Paul is a furthest thing from a rhino. Marjorie Green Taylor is a furthest thing from a rhino. And the only person that could have kept all this together and going forward, because Charlie Kirk did it, is Charlie Kirk. Donald Trump will tell you today that the reason why he is president, one of the main reasons is because of Charlie Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why we're going to lose in 2026 if we continue on this path is because he's gone. And one of the reasons why we're going to lose in 2028 is because if we lose, it is because if we stay on this path, it is because Charlie Kirk is gone. Rick, I was in New York City just a couple months ago, and I went to 2 different mosques and debated in 2 different mosques. I went to one mosque and I was debating Muslims that were from the region of Iran. That's where they were from. They was from that region. I debated some other Muslims that was from Albania, is where I was debating some Muslims from that region. 2 different types of Muslims, 2 different types of people. They both believe the same thing. They just have different personalities, a different spirit about them. When I was in the Iranian mosque and I was there, I was scheduled for a debate for 1 hour. There was about 75 Muslims that was in there. There was 6 Muslim men sitting at one table, and then there was me sitting at a table by myself. That debate lasted for about 10 minutes. And after about 10 minutes, I was kicked out of there very quickly, cursed, called all kind of crazy names, got a little nervous. I had a security guard with me, got a little nervous for a few minutes and was kicked out of there and left. The Albanian mosque that I was in and that I was debating in, that debate lasted over an hour. That debate went very well. It was actually a very good debate. Matter of fact, whenever it got finished, something very unusual happened. They asked me if they could all join around and if I would pray in their mosque, which is unheard of. I have talked to a lot of people, and they we've never heard of that, of them asking a Christian to pray in a Muslim mosque with all of these Muslims. And so I did. I knelt down and I prayed a Christian prayer in this Muslim mosque. Very interesting. But when I was there in New York City and I was watching and seeing and debating and hearing all these things that was happening and going on with the Muslims, I told my son as we were flying back on Saturday, we were flying back here to Mississippi. I told my son, because we were talking about the election coming up. And I told him, he said, do you think the Muslim was going to win? I said, after spending a week in New York City, I believe that he is going to win. I believe that he is going to be the next mayor of New York City. And Rick, I'm going to make a prediction today. And you remember this is going to happen in the next 20 years if we stay on the path that we're on right now. We're going to see a Muslim as president of the United States. If we're not careful and if we stay on this path, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I travel all over this nation. I travel all over and I speak every week of my life somewhere, and I talk to a group of people all the time. The Christian people in this nation are complacent. The Christian people in this nation we have gotten so easy and comfortable that we are taking it easy. The Republican Party is getting the same, complacent. The churches are getting complacent. The pastors won't speak out. They're scared about talking about truth. They don't want to speak out on the evils of abortion. They don't want to even speak out on the evils of this drag queens and transgenders and that marriage is between a man and a woman. And they won't stand for the Constitution and the Second Amendment. And they won't even stand and even talk about the founding fathers because they're afraid that they're going to hurt somebody's feelings. And now they're even kneeling. A lot of Christians and even these so-called pastors are kneeling to the LGBT community, and they're kneeling to this wokeism that is sweeping this nation. And very few pastors are willing to take that stand because they're scared that they're going to offend someone. And if we stay on this path, we're going to continue to see Muslims get elected because they are not taking it easy. They are not scared to speak out. They are not scared to work. They are to as far as getting votes. They are not scared to talk about the things that are important to them. And the Christian, we are scared we're going to offend someone. Rick, I preached a message a couple weeks ago in my church, and I got on drag queens, hot and heavy. I preached against transgenders. I preached against pro-choice. I was going hardcore on all of it. I got an email the next morning, and this guy emailed me, said, "I'll never come back to your church again because you're too political." And so I emailed him back. And then I got up next Sunday in my church and I read his email. And I said, I didn't say his name, but I said, this guy sent me this email. And he sent me this email, said he was never coming back to my church because I was too political. And so I got up on Sunday morning and I said, I didn't realize that being pro-life was political. I thought that was something that a Christian should be. That's in the Bible. I can give you several Bible verses where it talks about being pro-life. That's not a Republican or Democrat issue. How can any Christian that's a Democrat vote Democrat that is pro-choice? How can any Christian be pro-choice? I don't understand that. I don't understand how transgenderism, how is that a political issue? I look at my Bible, he male and female. There are two genders. That is a Christian issue. That is not a political issue. How can any Christian how can any Christian be for transgenderism? I got on the drag queens and I was preaching this in my pulpit. Drag queens, you're talking about a man that wants to put on a skirt and a pair of thong panties and get up in front of a bunch of 5 and 6 year old little girls and boys at a library and dance in front of them like a bunch of perverts. How is that? How is that political? That is a Christian issue and a Christian value. And what's happening is our pastors are getting complacent and our pastors are getting so liberal and our pastors in this nation are getting scared to death to speak truth. And if we're not careful, we're going to lose this nation because of the pastors that are scared to death of offending someone and making someone mad. Well, if you're not offending somebody, then something's wrong with you. And we have to be speaking out. We have to be standing for truth. And we have to fight for the very soul of this nation. And if we don't, we're going to lose it. And we're losing it. We're seeing it every day. And if we're not careful, we're going to continue to lose it.
You know, Dan, you bring up a good point because we're having this in the Catholic community as well. We're very much on the same page with all those things, right? Transgenderism is against the natural order. Abortion is an offense to God. Like these are not, if you're a Christian in any sense, these are not new things. These are not new things to you,
right?
And yet we sit here and we watch our bishops talk about immigration. Like that's the thing that they want to talk about. And you have us screaming, like, can we talk about abortion? Can we talk about these transgender issues? Can we talk about these other things? But because a lot of our bishops have been infected with this thing called liberation theology, they are more to that way. And so you have a lot of people, and that's where this divide comes, because you have more of the more traditional people who are in our Latin mass communities that are adhering to that more traditional view, and they are in a mini conflict, for lack of a better term, with our the older generation, the boomer, for lack of a better term. That's the only way I can describe them. Pastors and bishops that want to talk about tolerance and love and all these other things. And a lot of people are just kind of leaving these churches because they see these things that you're talking about and they go, but this doesn't reconcile with my faith. These things don't match. How are they doing this? So we're losing people. A, they're complacent. B, they're like, we have this huge problem on both coasts and in major cities where Catholics claim to be Catholic, but yet they vote Democrat. And we have this fight every 2 and 4 years. It's like, no, you can't vote for a Democrat if they're for transgenderism, if they're for abortion. You can't do that. They say, no, but tolerance and immigration and love the poor. It's like, yes, good things, but you can't balance out the good things of those with murdering children. Like those two, they're not equal in this. God does not look at those two things equally. So I see what you're talking about, because we're having that struggle as well. And it is a complacency. We have been way too comfortable for way too long. And that just leaves those who have not been comfortable to come in and to do the things they do. And within 20, probably 15, 20 years, we're going to look a lot like London more often. New York is going to look like London within 5 years now. And I don't think a lot of people are ready for that. Paris, the same way, pretty much most of Europe. And it's actually quite unnerving to see how people are in their homes watching this on Fox News or the Daily Wire or whatever. And they're just kind of going, pass the French fries. And they don't really care about getting active, because for me, I watch people, there's two things. Pastors don't want to speak out because it's been drilled in their head about separation of church and state, which is not a thing. It was a letter from Jefferson. It's not official policy. People think it's an official policy. Well, the First Amendment, there's nothing about separation of church and state in the First Amendment. In fact, most of the 13 colonies had some kind of state religion in them. Secondly, the fact is that they just, as you said, they want to be in line with the group, and society is telling us, even if it's not right, tolerance, and tolerance leaves you open to being steamrolled. As I'm in agreement with you politically, even I could say spiritually, we're being steamrolled by those who are not compatible with the way things have been done for so long.
Back to what you're about separation of church and state, people say to me all the time, well, we need to take away, the tax, the tax exempt status. Well, listen to me very carefully. I pay taxes like everybody else. My income, my salary that I get from my church, I pay taxes on that just like everyone else pays taxes. So I should be able to speak and say whatever I want because I pay taxes like everyone else. And about immigration, because I get this all the time, people say the Bible says to be kind to the stranger in your land. Yeah, that's what God told Israel. Yes, he did tell Israel that. But listen very carefully. Nehemiah went back to do what? To rebuild the walls. And the stranger in the land did not come over or under those walls. They came through the gate. And there was a gatekeeper. And when they came through the gate, they came in to do business. And when they got done with their business, as they was journeying through the land, then they would leave and go back to their homeland. Or if they was going to become a part of the nation of Israel, they would have to do several things. One, they would have to get circumcised. That was one of the first things that a male would have to do if he was going to become part of the nation of Israel. He would have to get circumcised. Secondly, they would have to learn their language. They would have to learn their customs. They would have to learn those things and leave their customs and their language back where it came from if they would come to the nation of Israel. And unfortunately, a lot of these pastors, they want to pick out one verse. The Bible says to be kind to the stranger in the land. Correct. To those that came in legally. But those that came in illegally, ship them back home, send them back to the house. I am all for immigration, 100%. I am for legal immigration. I am against illegal immigration. If you're going to come to America, come legally. I just went to Mexico last week.
Okay, finish up and then I'll ask my question. Go ahead.
I went to Mexico last week to go fishing. Okay, I spent 4 days fishing with a bunch of pastors. I had to have my passport. I had to go through their customs. I had to do all these things in order to enter into their country legally. While I was there, I spent money. I fished. I ate their foods. I had a great time. I came home back to America. I had to go have my passport, had to go back through customs, had to go through the passport agency to come back into my home country. But I went legally and I came back home legally. I'm for that 100%. I'm not opposed to immigration. I'm just opposed to illegal immigration.
So there's this, and immigration has been a part of the American fabric for centuries. But how do we square this recent issue where we are allowing people in legally through either H-1Bs or just immigration in general? But how do we reconcile the fact that those people that are coming in, such as the Muslims in New York, the ones you were talking to, who don't, as some would say, share the values that Americans here share? How do we reconcile that fact? Because if we do welcome, here's another thing. I'm all for an immigration moratorium. That's how extreme I am. I think we should shut the borders for 10 years while we figure out everything. But how do we reconcile the fact that we can be for immigration, but yet the legal immigration, but yet the legal immigration is still causing issues like a Mandani, right? A Mandani that has shown up. How do we get those two things? How can that be two sides of that same coin?
So I think it's simple. I think one, we have a constitution, right? And so in our constitution has several amendments. It speaks very clearly to the American way of life. And if someone wants to come to America, first of all, they need to adhere to the Constitution. Secondly, they need to learn our language. They need to learn English. And that needs to be done right away. I would almost put that ahead of them even being allowed to come in. They already had several lessons, several months of learning English. They need to learn English when they come to America. If they violate the Constitution, if they're not learning the language, they need to be shipped back to where they came from. I also do not believe that they should be able to come here and run for office within a certain amount of years. There needs to be maybe 10 or 12 years that they're here before they can run for office. Now, I'm a very strict I love the Constitution, and so I want to adhere to the Constitution. But I also believe in the fact that a man should be able to worship God however a man wants to worship God. But one thing that we need to understand very clearly, talking about the Muslim faith is very much different than any other faith. The Baptists are not calling for the killings of infidels. The Catholic Church is not calling for the killings of infidels. The Mormons are not calling for the killing of infidels. The Church of Christ, the Pentecostals, the Methodists, the Buddhists, you just named those religions, they're not calling for the killings of the infidels. I've got a Quran here in my office, sitting over there on my bookshelf, and I can open up that Quran, which is the Muslim Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And in that Quran, it speaks very clearly about killing infidels. Why are we letting people into our nation that have a faith that believe it's okay and that they should kill the infidels, which you and I, in their book, we're an infidel. So why are we letting them into our nation? Why are we letting any Muslims into our nation? We should not be. Like you talking about a moratorium on immigration, I'm for that 10 million% from about 95 to 100 countries that are Muslim that we should not be letting them come into our nation because their faith teaches them that we are infidels and that they should kill us. So they can't kill us. Their country is not powerful enough to overtake America. So they're infiltrating by coming in, becoming citizens, running for office, and they're going to take over that away, just like they've done in London, just like they're doing in Paris, just like they're doing in a lot of other countries. So that's what I believe whenever it comes to immigration. Shut it off. Quit letting Muslims come into this nation. They are not coming here for the good of our nation. They're coming here to take over. They're coming here to take over our schools, to put in Sharia law. I mean, you look and see what's happening in Michigan and some of these places where the Muslim population is already taking over. It's happening already right now. So a moratorium, absolutely, but we should cut off Muslims coming to this nation right away. We shouldn't let another Muslim in. That is my take on immigration. Why? Because their faith calls for the killing of our nation. Their faith calls for the killing of Christians. Why are we letting people like that in our country? I don't understand. Like, why are we letting people in that their faith teaches to kill Christians? We should shut it down. We shouldn't let them in.
Okay. Yeah, it's a very interesting question because I pose that to anybody that says, well, I'm for legal immigration. Well, with right now, legal immigration, a lot of the places like Dearborn, Minneapolis with Representative Ilhan Omar, they're all citizens. But we're also seeing the fact that these citizens, these people that came here legally, are not a mesh culturally with that. We're actually starting to see other nations as well see that. The recent election of the Prime Minister of Japan, she won on a immigration, keeping immigrants out of Japan. So we're starting to see a lot of other Western type countries start to angle that way. So I think that's a problem that the Republican Party needs to find a way to have that message ring out loud and clear. But of course, they would not go with such a message because they're afraid of being sued into oblivion, or the MSN, the mainstream media telling them they're intolerant, all these other kinds of things, and that's not American values, and all of these problems that the media can drum up for the Republican Party because they just don't have a backbone to push those ideas. So let me speaking of the Republican Party having problems, let me ask you this question. Do you think Christian Zionism is going to be one of the reasons that the Republican Party ultimately just crumbles?
So let me ask you this question before I answer that question. What
Please.
is your Christian Zionism like? What are because I talk to different people and everyone has a different opinion or a different idea of what that is. So what is that to you?
So when I describe it, when I ask my
Yes.
guests this question, that's a great, thank you for that. It is those like a Mike Huckabee, who's famously, he did an interview the other day and said that we must be loyal to the state of Israel, or a Mark Levin who's out there saying that Christians need to acknowledge that without Judaism, we have to, you're against the Bible and all these other kinds of things. I guess the idea would be, when I hear politicians speak, Ted Cruz is a great example of this. This is not me speaking out of turn. Ted Cruz was on Tucker Carlson. Ted Cruz said that when he ran for Texas senator, he was going to be the most pro-Israel senator in the Senate. And so that's when I say Christian Zionism.
Okay.
Politicians like that, commentators like that, who to a lot of younger generations, to a lot of people that are just maybe taking politics in passively, they see these people and they say, well, they're giving a lot of attention to this one country. They're giving a lot of attention to this one group when we have other problems. It's not that they don't like the group. It's not that they're against these people. It's that, okay, rent's really high here. Jobs, Amazon's laying off jobs. UPS is laying off. What are we doing to help people here in this union? How can you be an America first person and then say things like, we need to make sure that Israel is supported, or Ukraine is supported, or all of these other type of other countries that seem to put America on the back burner?
So a lot of people don't understand dispensationalists or dispensation, right? And people get confused with dispensation. In the Old Testament, God worked through the nation of Israel through the Old Testament. I mean, if you were going to get to God in the Old Testament, you had to go through the nation of Israel. There was no other way to God but through the nation of Israel. Then you go to the Gospels, which is the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the Gospels, and it tells the life of Jesus. Jesus was born. Matthew 1 gives his genealogy. We go all the way through Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the four Gospels, the story of Jesus written by four different men from four different perspectives. And then you get to the New Testament, when Jesus' death, his burial, his resurrection. Now you have the New Testament, the body of Christ. You have that is happening. Then you have Paul's letters to the churches. So you have the Old Testament, then you have the Gospels, then you have the New Testament, then you have the letters to the church. And right now we are in the church age. And so people are getting things confused about the nation of Israel, that like God is working through the nation of Israel. Let me say this. God is not working through the nation of Israel today. That does not mean that God is not done with the nation of Israel, because God is not finished with them. He is going to come back to the nation of Israel. That's not going to happen until the millennial reign of Christ in the 1,000-year, after the 7-year tribulation period, is when that's going to happen and take place. But he's not going to come and rule and reign from Benjamin Netanyahu's office, right? He's not going to come and rule and reign besides Benjamin Netanyahu. He's not. That's not happening. Matter of fact, Benjamin Netanyahu better accept Jesus Christ as his personal savior, or he's going to spend all eternity burning in hell if he don't accept Christ as his personal savior. And so any and every other Jew that's in the nation of Israel. So the main thing that we better be doing for the nation of Israel is praying for their salvation, is praying that they'll accept Christ. We support several missionaries that are in Israel, and many of them, some of them have went to jail for talking about Jesus Christ. They don't want you talking about the gospel of Jesus over in Israel. They will tell you to be quiet. They have laws and rules against all of that. So I said all that to say this.
Mm-hmm.
We need to let Israel just take care of Israel. Israel doesn't need America to take care of Israel. We have so many of our own problems here in America that we just need to get out of Israel's way and let Israel take care of Israel. If let me just say this, and boy, this is going to aggravate some people. But if Israel is what Ted Cruz says Israel is, and if Israel is what Mike Huckabee says Israel is, then you're telling me that God needs America to take care of Israel? You're telling me that God can't take care of Israel? Did God not allow Israel to go to captivity? I mean, Daniel, the whole book of Daniel is Israel in captivity. Daniel was a Jew who was in captivity under King Nebuchadnezzar. So I said all that to say this. Israel, God is not working through Israel today. We are not in the Israel age, we're in the church age. God is working through the church. America needs to focus on America first and America problems. We need to let Israel be Israel and let Israel take care of Israel's problems. And Israel will be just fine and America will be just fine. I am okay with helping other nations with certain things. What I'm not okay with is helping nations with other things when things are so bad here. We have to take care of America first. And if we'll take care of America first, then we can help other nations if we have access, if we have leftovers, if we have things that we can help them with. Let me give this illustration and maybe this can help make some better sense.
Mm-hmm.
I pastor a church and there's a lot of different ministries that we support out of our church. If my church is not healthy, can I support those other ministries? No. If my church isn't healthy, guess what I have to do? I have to cut some things back. We support 50 missionaries right now, our church does. Now, I have a small church. We support 50 missionaries in different countries all over the world. If we are not healthy as a church, then I have to cut back on money that we're sending to help missionaries get the gospel around the world. I don't want to do that, but I have to do that to take care of my church. America has so many, we're $38 trillion in debt. How are we sending any money to any country? We're $38 trillion in debt. We have veterans that are living on the street that are homeless. How are we sending any money to any country? We have so many issues and so many problems, and people want to get up and talk about how they're against welfare, and on the same hand, they want to send $100 million to another country. I don't understand all of that. We have so many issues right here in America that we need to be taken care of. Back to Israel. Israel doesn't need America coming in and fixing all of Israel's problems. Israel needs to fix its own problems. Israel needs to take care of itself. Now, as a Christian, yes, I'm supposed to pray for Israel, and I do pray for Israel. I pray for their safety, their freedom, and those type. I pray for their salvation. I pray for all nations in that way. I pray for Japan. I pray for North Korea. I pray for the salvation of all of them. I want to send missionaries to all of them. I want to send missionaries to Israel. We've got missionaries in countries that they're not supposed to be in. But that is getting the gospel. Now, as a citizen of our great nation, I shouldn't be forcing. So, and we'll get into. We could talk about taxes another day, but I shouldn't be asking someone else to send. We're going to send our hard-earned money, our tax money to DC, so they can send it around the world. If they want to do that, let them start GoFundMe's. Start some GoFundMe's. Quit sending my tax money to Ukraine. Quit sending my tax money to all these other countries that don't even believe in God, that hate our religion. Why are we sending money to countries that hate America? That makes no sense to me. Like, what in the world? We think we're going to buy their love? They're not going to love you. They're going to hate you. These people could care less about you and I as Americans. And so that has always just mind boggled me whenever it comes to the things that we do. But here, let's get this. Let's talk real issue. The reason why a lot of this money is going to Ukraine. Why do you think it's going to Ukraine? Is it somehow making its way back into some of the pockets over here? Is it making its way back into who's building all these missiles and who's building these bombs and who's building these grenades and who's building these weapons? Where's all this? Who's making the real money here? That's what that's the real conversation. Yeah. That's the real conversation. Do I want Ukraine to be safe? Yes, of course, I want peace all over the world, but not at the expense of our own nation, not at the expense of our soldiers, not at their expense. So the real question is who's making the money here? Follow the money.
Yeah, the people. Yeah, I try to break it down to people this way: the military-industrial complex, which is a huge part of the American economy and the American way of life.
Absolutely.
They had a sandbox to play in the Middle East for the better part of 20 years in Afghanistan and Iraq. Not the brave men and women that went over there. Nothing against the armed service and the military that signed up and just went where they were, but the military-industrial complex, they had a place to use their toys and try out
Right.
different things. And when they left, they needed a new sandbox. And it's kind of ironic. As soon as those two kind of shut down and Afghanistan was kind of wrapped up, then this whole thing started up in Eastern Europe. So it's very interesting to see there. So I completely agree with you with that whole thing of money's got to go somewhere. There's got to be a sandbox for these people, these companies, these corporations to play in, because you can't let these bombs sit around for too long. They got to get blown up somewhere in that regard. So it's yes, I believe in that as well, that the military industrial complex has that. And I've been talking to a lot of people on these shows recently, and it's just I think that I don't care if Mike Huckabee has these opinions about Israel. I don't even care if Ted Cruz does. I just want them to put the issues that Americans need first. Right? You can
Absolutely.
believe in whatever you want to believe in. You know what? It's America. You want to believe in that stuff? Have a great day on that. But can you do your job and actually like worry about your constituents first? And that's the thing I see happening. And Marjorie Taylor Greene was very famous for being outspoken on the fact that, yeah, can we take care of America here and not really worry about other countries? And that was one of her big things there that really had her had a lot of respect from people in the conservative side, in the Make America First, Make America Great Again first side. And speaking of that politics, we'll kind of wrap up the conversation here back to what we were starting about. Southern politics, Georgia and Alabama in particular. Why those two states? Why are you worried in particular about those two states?
Whenever you look at the conservative movement, right? You look at where's Marjorie Greene Taylor from? You know, you look at conservatives, you look at the Christian nation. Um, the Mississippi is one of the most highest Christian state in the nation. Alabama's up there, top. Louisiana, Georgia, a lot of these states. And so you have to start hitting at the very foundation of this nation. You got to start. That's where you have to start. You have to start at the foundation. And Georgia and Alabama, you have these America First candidates, America First patriots. It's not that we're against the world. We're not against the world. We're not against countries having peace. We just want to fix America first. We can't be the police of the world. We got to fix America. And whenever you're $38 trillion in debt, that means you got a lot of people in DC that are not America first. They don't understand and they're not America first. And so whenever it comes to America first, whenever it comes to the Christian policy, whenever it comes to Christian conservatism and those type of things, the Republican Party, the Deep South is right now, the Deep South is under attack. The Democrat Party, this wokeism, is trying to come in because they know that that is a very foundation that weakens the soul of this nation. And when you look at the Deep South, you look at Georgia and Alabama, Mississippi, even Louisiana and Tennessee. And that's where it's going to happen. When you look at liberalism, where does liberalism start first, typically? Out in California and makes its way toward the east.
Mm-hmm.
Well, whenever you're looking at the fabrics of this nation being torn down, that base, it's already torn down in California, but it ain't torn down here in the South. And so that's what they're hitting, and that's what they're after because that's the very soul of this nation. That's why we have to push. That's why we have to fight. That's why we have to pray. That's why we have to stay engaged. Yes, we are sounding the alarm. Do I believe it's over? Absolutely not. Do I believe that we have already lost? No. Do I believe that that the Muslims are going to take over this nation, they can. But they're not if we will sound the alarm and if we will push back and if we will fight against this Democrat socialistic type of government that they're trying to push down our throats, then we can win if we'll push back and work. And that's what we have to do. We have to unify and come together and work, and we can win. But if we stay on the path we're on right now, we're going to lose, and we're going to lose big. We're going to lose big. All we're doing is sounding the alarm. That's all we're doing. I'm not one of these you know these guys that say that we can't win and that it's over and that America can't have revival. I don't believe that. I wouldn't be on your show if I believed that. I believe we can win. I don't believe that it's over. I believe that we can and will win if we'll give it everything that we have. Now we're going to have to work. We're going to have to push. We're going to have uncomfortable conversations. We're going to have to go talk in places that we necessarily wouldn't go and talk at. We're going to have conversations with people that we normally wouldn't have conversations with. But we are going to have to continue to push and fight if we're going to maintain that soul of our nation. And so that's where it starts. And we must work and we must fight and we must pray.
Excellent. My last question. I asked anybody, any of my political guests on the show. Right now, you're invited to the White House. You get 15 minutes with Trump, one-on-one. Nobody else is in the room with you. And he's like, Dan, what are 3 things you can tell me to help get this round? What are the 3 things that if you had a chance to sit down with Trump right now and say, this is what we can do to fix, or what are the 3 things that you would bring up to Trump right now to help him make sure that the agenda that he ran on and that you and I believe in, because we both voted for him, really can be successful?
Well, Rick, the first thing that I would talk to him about is his soul, right? As a Christian, as a pastor, above anything else, I would talk to him about the gospel, about Jesus, and that Jesus loves him. Jesus died for him. Jesus rose again. And if you're going to go to heaven, it's going to be through Jesus. It's not through religion. It's not through a church. I'm a Baptist, but I'm not going to heaven because I'm a Baptist. I'm going to heaven because of Jesus. And I've got a lot of Catholic friends, Pentecostal friends, Baptist friends, Methodist friends, and we're all going to go to heaven, not because of our religion, but because of Jesus. So that's the first thing. I would talk to him about that. The second thing right now, I would talk to him about unifying the party, because 2026 midterms is here. We got to unify the party. That's the second thing that I would talk about is why aren't we working to unify the party for 2026? Because if we can unify the party for 2026, then we can get ready for 2028. And that would be the third thing that I would talk about is 2028. Let's go ahead and have some backroom meetings and start talking about who is going to be, and of course, we'll have several different candidates, I'm sure, running, but who's the best fit to take over president once Donald Trump is no longer president in 2028. So, just off the top of my head, those are the 3 things that I would want to talk about personally. One, his soul. I believe that's the most important thing. The Bible says, what profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his soul? Right? You can have the whole world and die and go to hell without Jesus, and you've lost everything. I'd rather be poor, the poor man in Luke 16, and have nothing.
I think Dan might. I think we might have lost Dan's connection there for a second. We'll see if he'll jump back on here. But I think I guess he was preaching a little too hard that the Gremlins got after him and went after him. But if you are interested, you can look up Dan's information on social media. If you want to follow him on Twitter, I can bring up his Twitter right now because that's what I can do. You can find his information. I'm going to bring it up right now on the screen. If you are interested in following Dan, this is his Twitter account. Go ahead and check it out. It's under Patriot Dan Carr. And yeah, check out his information. He's also got a YouTube channel that he can check out as well. And he is a firebrand if there ever was one. And it's good to have him back. Looks like he was able to wrestle the Gremlins away and come on back to the state. I was just telling everybody where they could follow you on
Nice.
on X right now while we were waiting to get you back in. Also, I mean, it was actually kind of perfect because you wrapped up perfectly there. In addition to following you on X, where else could they follow you, sir?
Facebook, Dan Carr, Patriot Pastor, X, same. YouTube, same. Rumble, the same there on TikTok. Dan Carr, Patriot Pastor. And so that's where you can find me.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for taking the time. Hour flies by, man, when you're able to talk about these things in depth. I appreciate you. Hopefully, when the midterms start to come back around, I'm going to want you to come back on and we can kind of dissect things and how hopefully the party has come back together. We can come back on much better terms in that way. All right, folks, thank you so much for hanging out with me here on the breakdown. We will talk to you all next time here on the program. God bless and Viva Cristo Rey.